Hello, my name is Alex Schleger. Today I am going to show how to capture handled exception using AVIcode Intercept Studio. I have a virtual machine and I have a project in Visual Studio which is open here right now, and there is a Windows Form application. Here it is. So there are 4 different buttons, but every time I click one of those buttons, something exceptional occurs. So for example, if I click handled exception, then that is supposed to create a handled exception in the application code. Here's how it looks like. Inside this method, there is a call to raise handled exception. And if we scroll down, we'll see what happens inside this call. Basically, there is just an exception. It gets thrown there, and then there is a catch here, so the exception is handled in the button click method. Let's see how it looks like. Here's my application. When I click handle exception, I see a message box, and well, the exception is handled. Now let's say I wanted to capture information about this exception using AVIcode Intercept Studio. So here's what I will do. I have AVIcode agent installed here, and first of all I need to enable monitoring of my application in the Intercept Management Console. So I will go to Start, AVIcode Intercept Studio, Intercept Management Console. Here it is. I have nothing in the executable applications, and the first thing I have to do, I have to add my application to monitoring. I can browse for the file, or I can simply type the name of my application here. The name is straightforward. It's bug.arp.exe, and in my case I am going to have the same display name and application name. So I'll click next. This screen here corresponds to the performance settings, which I'm not going to change because right now I'm concerned about the exception. Instead, I will go to the next screen, and here I will enable monitoring of all exceptions. I will also enable data collection of member variables and application functions, and then I will click next, and so here we can finish configuration. So now I have my application added to monitoring in the Intercept Management Console, and the next thing I have to do, I have to start it not from the Visual Studio this time. I will start as just as a regular executable. Let's try it. So the application is starting right now. I will click handle exception button. I have just the same behavior here. I have my message box which says that there is a handled exception. I'm going to click OK, and now I am going to switch to the AVIcode SE Viewer. So AVIcode SE Viewer is a web application which you can use to troubleshoot, to see troubleshooting data about your exception, about your performance violations. So let me click here. Here's the AVIcode SE Viewer, and as you can see, there is an event that just occurred 10:35:39 p.m. and the time right now is 10:36 p.m. So there was an application failure from bug application.exe from this particular machine, and I can click on this on the event description, and the viewer is going to show me event details for this event. Let's take a look. So first of all, I have a system exception with exactly the same message. I have some information about the exception. I have the source, have each result, and if it were a different exception I would have more details here. Then I have the call stack. Let's scroll down a little bit. So for example, for raise handled exception method, I have some information about the members of their class where this exception occurred. So since this is a form, I have some information about buttons, about labels. By default, AVIcode does not collect those parameters, so that's why we don't really see any values. We just know that there were such members. And basically here it is. I have the call stack. I can let's see, I can switch to the source code. I will see the fragment of the source code where this exception occurred. I will see the line number, I will see the source file name, and I can even go to the assembly, for example, and verify assembly information. So this is how it worked. I started with an application, I went to the intercept management console, I added that application to AVIcode configuration, and after that I had to restart it, and right away I got my exception captured and displayed in AVIcode as a viewer. Let's summarize what we did in order to get that information about the exception. First of all, you have to add your application to the intercept management console. Once you've done that, you can enable all exceptions option, because we are talking about handled exceptions. Then you have to enable collect parameters and member variables option, and apply configuration changes. In order to start monitoring of your application, you have to restart the application, and then once it is done, you can reproduce your application issue and it should show up in the EC viewer after that. So in the next session we are going to take a look at the critical exceptions, those which are not handled in the application, and we'll see how AVIcode displays critical exceptions, how AVIcode captures them, and what's the difference between handled and critical exceptions from AVIcode standpoint.